Thank you for joining me for this short presentation on designing a course on women and inclusive leadership in business. I'm Jessica McManus Warnell. I'm in the Department of Management and Organization at our Mendoza College of Business at the University of Notre Dame. This is a new course. We launched it in the spring of 2020, so it's now been offered for 2 semesters. And I offer these comments in the hopes to encourage or validate others' interests in teaching a course like this in a business school, certainly to, I hope, create connections and continue to learn from others in the development of our course. It's an undergraduate level course offered through our business school, through our Department of Management. It is also cross-listed with gender studies. So while primarily the students pull from the business school through all of our disciplines in the business school, we allocate several seats to students studying gender studies. And I have found that to be a really great opportunity to bring in students with diverse perspectives and really contribute to our class discussions and student engagement. In brief, the course is rooted in the idea that our professional lives, our organizations flourish when there is a meaningful commitment to gender equity and inclusion at work. We operate from the perspective, of course, of reflecting the goals of our College of Business and of our university. Our college has a key ambition and goal to grow the good in business. So focus on the pro-social and the impactful ways that business can contribute when considered through the lens of ethics. And the university broad mission of learning and service to justice. So I hope that the course reflects these key institutional goals. Contextually, pre-pandemic, the issue of women at work was getting a lot of attention. We were in the post-Me Too era. There was a lot of corporate attention, media attention, and scholarly work in this space. And those issues, of course, have not gone away. So felt that the time was right to offer a course like this for our undergrads. We did have precedent here at our business school through our MBA program. So my wonderful colleague, Professor Joe Holt, has taught for several years now a similar course to our MBA students. So I was grateful to him for his insights on how that's gone teaching with students in our school. Student demand is a factor, as well as benchmarking other schools. So looking at what other schools are doing in the space, and then responding to the students' interests. So I teach other classes, and in my class on business ethics, for example, when we would talk about issues of gender equity and women at work, I certainly picked up an interest in engaging a bit deeper on the issues. And so that helped provide the impetus for moving this forward. Corporate engagement was an important part of the way we structured the course. So I brought in several guest speakers I'll talk about in just a moment. Case examples, certainly from the field, how companies themselves were engaging with these issues. And then the student assignments, there was opportunity to take a close look at some of the corporate work in this space. My hope throughout the course was to model our content in the way that the course was being conducted. So I worked to make the course highly participatory, encourage student ownership of the content. For example, I would ask the students to volunteer, and they kind of signed up to host sessions when we had guest speakers where they would help facilitate those discussions. And then I also built in, the final paper requirement while, ensuring it was within the theme and giving them some specific parameters for what the paper would look like. I asked them to choose their own topics, which I think was a well-received way to dive deeper into something that perhaps aligned with their major or particular interests. And we got some really wonderful topics. So students wrote on themes such as pay equity or specific contextual situations like, being a young woman in finance. There is a great paper on integrating parenting with professional life. So while, of course, they drew from data, they drew from the resources that were available, they were able to shape the topic according to their own interests. For their assessment then, there were other short writing assignments, for example, based on some of the research in this space. We did have a quiz as well on that research, those research highlights. For my own research alignment, it was, I think, exciting to have 20 students, 25 students taking a look at the topic from their perspective as young people studying business. And it was helpful for me to see what engaged them and what was most compelling and how they engage with the topics. So that pointed me to some things that I can explore in my own research and writing. When we thought about marketing the class to students, I wanted to be pretty intentional about it. So for one thing, the title itself. So within the broad issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion at work, there are several topics that, make great course topics and course themes. So, racial issues, racial injustice at work. There's all sorts of, additional areas that we could explore. I wanted to be really clear in the time and space that I had available for this course that our primary focus would be women at work. So I tried to reflect that in the course title and in the course description. Certainly within the course, acknowledging that there is much more to explore in this space. Even the class competition was kind of a question, or composition, excuse me, was a question I had early on. I was, curious to see who would enroll, whether it would be primarily young women. We saw a nice balance of young women and men in the course, which I think was great because it really reflected professional life and gave us some great opportunities to engage with each other. And again, as I said, certainly it's open to ongoing development, and I welcome insights from others in this space. The course objectives, the short version, basically to enhance awareness and sensitivity to these issues, to put some data behind some of the themes and trends we're seeing, to equip the students, I hope, with some knowledge and content and language that is helpful. And then again, to move toward the space of personal action. So strategies for navigating challenges, learning from others in the field, and exploring these best practices organizationally. Our topics, here's a list of some of the key things that we talked about. Certainly, we started from the place of discussing where things are now. What does it look like? And this, I think, was both classes, both times this has been offered. I was interested to see that some of the data was actually surprising to the students. So, while they had understood, of course, that there are issues of inequities at work and challenges, seeing some of the data, I think, in black and white was eye-opening to students. And what do trends look like? What does the data tell us right now? What is kind of a bit of the historical perspective? We certainly talked about coronavirus as an acute challenge, and we know from everything that's coming in already in the data and anecdotally, we know that across all socioeconomic levels, women are being impacted disproportionately. So at work, with work retention, with family life challenges. And so certainly we talked about that as an acute challenge to women at work. We talked about the terminology. So defining diversity, equity, and inclusion. What do we mean by those terms? How are they used? I brought in some global perspective with a look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the Global Compact. We looked at issues such as unconscious bias, again, some terminology, widening the pipeline, the glass ceiling, the broken lung. So kind of where in the trajectory of women's career progressions are the primary challenges and opportunities, certainly. We talked about the idea of integration between your work and your family and other aspects of your life. Ethical leadership as a topic, organizational efforts such as mentorship, men as allies at work, and generational considerations and perhaps how things have changed or will continue to change and what it looks like now that we have a very diverse generational set of cohorts at work. Again, with the idea of emphasizing what's happening in the space of the companies themselves, most of our professional services organizations have put out reports and data from their constituents, from within their companies on this issue of women at work. So I had students take a look at several of these reports, in essence, to get a sense of how these issues are being discussed within our companies. For guest speakers, again, I would say that I think that having the students introduce and lead the Q&A with these guests was a helpful strategy. And then I was also fortunate to have our business school dean, Martin Kremers, join us for several guest introductions. He primarily joined us when these guests were alumni of the university. And I think it was a great addition that I'm thankful to him for joining us, because it sends a signal to the alumni that they're welcome and encouraged to engage with us on campus and share our appreciation with them for doing so. And it also sends an important signal to the students that this is something that our administration takes seriously and is invested in and interested in. So I was really grateful that that happened as well. When we think about, whom to bring in, certainly I tried to tap into our alumni network. So, if you're starting from a place of thinking about who might join you, that's a great place to start. You can find young alumni and people who are more senior in their positions. I think it was a good approach to try to incorporate speakers who are at different stages in their professional lives. We ended our suite of guest speakers with Coach Muffet McGraw. We're lucky to have her here in the business school now on her semi-retirement from coaching NCAA championship basketball, women's basketball. And so she's teaching a course on sports leadership, and I was fortunate enough to have her come in and join us to talk about the context of collegiate and professional sports for women. Another, I hope, practical note that's encouraging for others thinking about doing this. The feedback was very strong. I was pleased to see the student response was good. 96% in that composite score, described the course as an excellent course. We typically do see higher scores in elective courses like this than we do with required courses. But I was really encouraged to see, really good feedback. And in addition to the formal evaluations, after grades were calculated, I had some very nice messages and notes from students sharing their appreciation. I think, again, for the idea that this is something worth talking about. It's something that we should address in the curriculum. So that was really meaningful to me. Of course, the class is in development, and I welcome comments, feedback, connections in this space. Certainly the space of advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion is broad and takes many people and many paths and critical mass. So best of luck to all working in this space, and thanks for spending some time with me today. Take care.